Go turn now to Michele Goodwin. So what was your reaction as you listened to these arguments here today? How did you read what happened in the court?
Well, there appeared to be skepticism amongst the justices, and not just the liberal justices, but those justices that are conservative, the ones who were key in the overturn of Roe and Planned Parenthood v. Casey. They expressed skepticism as to whether these plaintiffs actually should have standing at all, whether if giving them the type of relief that they want is something that's disproportionate to the kinds of harms that they claim to have experienced, and whether they have actually experienced the kinds of harms that they claim to have experienced.
Do you think the focus on standing means we won't get a definitive answer from the court about how they view the bigger question about what the FDA can or should do on this or any other drug?
Well, you know, I can answer that in two parts. And one, that this could be a procedural punt, and this would be a very logical procedural punt because, as you mentioned, they frame themselves as doctors, but amongst these plaintiffs is an individual who has a master's degree in theology. He's not going to be in an ER unit helping someone manage a miscarriage. We hope not. There is someone who's a dentist, you know, may help someone with an abscess or removing a tooth, but not necessarily emptying the uterus. And so the claim that these are people who actually have some real skin in the game as plaintiffs is something that the court made shred of. But the second thing is that in the Dobbs decision, the court said that these would be matters that would be left to states. If mifepristone is removed from the marketplace, it affects not only Texas, where plaintiffs brought this case before a district court judge, the lone sitting district court judge in Amarillo, but it would also affect states like California, New York, Colorado, states that have now moved forward aggressively in protecting abortion rights legislatively, if not constitutionally, in their states.
That Amarillo judge also a focus of recent change in judicial rules to prevent exactly this kind of thing from happening with judge shopping for specific cases. The other piece of this was something called the Comstock Act, which a lot of people heard about today, perhaps for the first time. Explain the relevance.
Well, the Comstock Act is one that was passed over a century ago, and it banned the shipment of abortifacients and contraception through the mail or through carriers. But it's an act that, while never having been reversed or repealed, is one that's not been utilized. For years, individuals have been able to get contraception through the mail. They've been able to get mifepristone through the mail, not just recently, but COVID really helped with that. It provided the means
that makes sense, yeah.
Exactly. But Comstock is a strategy that's being used by anti-abortion groups to, in fact, not only make inroads against making sure that abortion would not be available, not only in places like Texas and other places where it's already been nearly banned, but also in other states where it has been available. But the other strategy is also to impact contraception as well. So what we heard in the court today was perhaps an opening salve with Comstock to do more of what anti-abortion groups are looking to do, not only with an anti-abortion approach, but also anti-contraception too.
Do you think that plays into what we touched on with Yamiche, the interesting alliance here between the Biden administration, reproductive rights activists, and the pharmaceutical industry, who clearly have skin in the game and not having all of their other products regulated, whether how they be sold or sold through the mail?
That is an excellent question, and I think this case is an important one for the court for a couple of reasons. You see this split. On one hand, a court that has leaned into an anti-abortion kind of framework. We see that with Dobbs. But at the same time, this is a court that also may have some interest in making sure that the corporate structure, the pharmaceuticals as we know them, as they are produced, as they are shared, as they are sold throughout the United States, isn't disrupted. At a substantive level, what this means is that if there is a group of people that can somehow convince a judge that they should have standing in order to remove a vaccine from the marketplace, a drug from the marketplace. I mean, let's be clear, there are people that are COVID deniers who believe that COVID vaccines harm people. There are people who believe that children shouldn't be exposed to polio vaccines or smallpox vaccines. What this case opens up is the possibility that any group of people who have those beliefs could still try to forum shop and possibly get those drugs removed from the marketplace, which would affect us all.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.